exciting when we have a Niall's Notes. Niall, what is in your notes today?
I shall tell you now, Robbie, because it's roughly 4 days since the United States bombed Iran, and the fog of war keeps getting thicker. The latest, biggest storm is over just how much damage was incurred at Iran's uranium enrichment sites. An early assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, is at the eye of the storm. The assessment is still classified. And that's understandable, but it's also not ideal for anyone trying to figure out who is telling the truth. The New York Times has reported that the DIA assessment suggests American strikes had set back Iran's nuclear program, quote, by only a few months. CNN made a similar claim, adding that the report indicated the strikes, quote, did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program. And the Associated Press said that the report, quote, contradicts statements from Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, end quote. Those statements included Trump's memorable assertion that Iran's nuclear program had been completely and fully obliterated. The Trump administration has reacted furiously to the media reports. Some of their pushback has involved the same old generic Trump world attacks on the media. But the more specific assertion from the administration seems to be that the DIA had also allowed for the possibility that maybe the damage was severe after all. And the Trump people say that this finding, more favourable to the president, has been left out of those media reports. Here's the president himself talking at the NATO summit in the Netherlands on Wednesday.
The document said it could be very severe damage, but they didn't take that. They said it could be limited or it could be very severe. They really didn't know, other than to say it could be limited or it could be very, very severe. And you didn't choose to put that.
But it wasn't as if Trump was exactly getting into all that many specifics himself. Take a look.
What intel reports do say that everything over there was obliterated?
Yeah, well, there are numerous of those reports, and they're coming out fast and furious. But the most respected ones we've already seen. And I will say that on a very confidential basis, they're looking at the reports, like numerous reports.
Trump has been backed up by other members of his administration. At a Pentagon news conference just moments ago, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the strikes had been a resounding success. The previous day, CIA Director John Ratcliffe released a statement saying that a body of credible evidence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by the recent targeted strikes. And also on Wednesday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard wrote on X that, quote, new intelligence confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. Gabbard provided no details of the nature of this new intelligence. So for now, who you believe will likely come down to who you trust, or maybe who you distrust. Trump supporters will contend the media are smearing him. Trump detractors will roll their eyes at vague but emphatic assertions from loyalists that he has been right all along. But this isn't only about Trump's veracity. After all, his propensity to make claims utterly untethered from the truth has been known for years. It isn't only about the military efficacy of the US strikes in isolation either. It's about the bigger question of the decision to involve the US directly in an assault on Iran begun by Israeli Prime Minister and accused war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. The idea that the mission was a glorious success rests almost entirely on Trump's assertions of complete obliteration being proven true. That allows the president's supporters to make this case. The program has been destroyed, the Iranians have suffered severe damage, and the US has avoided getting sucked into a prolonged conflict. This thesis crucially posits that Tehran will draw the lessons Israel and the US want it to draw. Basically, that Iran has been bombed because of its nuclear program, so it should abandon that program for good. But it's quite possible the Iranians will draw precisely the opposite lesson, that they were bombed because Israel hates them, and because they had not produced a nuclear weapon fast enough to deter such an attack. After all, the US doesn't seriously entertain the possibility of preemptive strikes on adversaries like Russia and North Korea, despite the many appalling elements of the leadership of those countries. And that's in part because they do have nukes. And if Iran does want to sprint toward a nuclear weapon, well, if it moved its enriched uranium before getting hit by Trump's bombers, or if it has secret facilities we haven't uncovered, or if its bombed facilities could be back online within months, well, that's a huge problem. Look, there's plenty we still don't know here, but Trump's assertions of triumph look awfully premature. So, Robbie, you buried with me on that one. What do you think?
Look, Robbie, the journalist,
Yes.
certainly wants to know how successful the strikes on the Iranian nuclear capabilities were, and thinks that this is obviously needs to be investigated. And if the administration is misleading us or wrong about how successful the strikes are, we need to know. Robbie Suave, the libertarian activist and the advocate for non-interventionism, wants to just say, no, they're all destroyed. We don't have to do this anymore. It's all good. It's handled. Stop.
Right.
But obviously, we need to know the truth. I agree with you largely that the danger in countries pursuing nuclear weapons is the run-up period when they're actually going after them. Like not having nuclear weapons, just leaving everybody alone, safe. Pursuing nuclear weapons, very dangerous. Having them, so far, leads to stability for you and not being involved in military conflict. Certainly not involved in nuclear military conflict. As you say, we're not going to take out the leadership of North Korea or Russia for that reason. So I understand why Iran wants one. I hope the lesson they draw from this is that with diplomacy and engagement with the West and that kind of thing, they don't need a nuclear weapon, and that they make us afraid that why they really want it is so they can attack Israel with it. Now, do I think that's what they're going to do? No, but I see their argument. I just hope cooler heads can prevail and we can go back to diplomacy, and we don't look too closely at whether we've actually obliterated the facility, because that's going to be a neocon desire that, well, the mission's not a con, we got to go in and finish the job. That's not going to be a good thing.
Well, that's
not from my perspective or yours.
No, that part is true, but I don't think we want to get into the position of saying we don't want to know the truth because the truth could be helpful to people we don't like, right? Or to whom we don't agree with.
We got to have the truth, Give it to us straight, Doc. We just got to know.
Exactly.
Regardless of what it is.
Right, and I think that goes to the risk that Trump took in this operation in the first place and what the reward is. Just to your point about the run-up period and all of that, we have spoken before about the other example of Libya. Now, Gaddafi was a terrible person, but he also did step back from apparently a WMD production or some sort of program that would have...
And we participated in his, not just ouster, but horrifying death. Anyway, that was one of the most catastrophic, I think, foreign policy blunders of our time. At least with Iraq, you could say, I mean, obviously many people knew better at the time, but whoopsies. Then we whoopsied again under very similar circumstances. Someone who was turning away from nuclear proliferation and was turning toward greater engagement with the West, and we still said, now wipe him off the map.
Right, and of course,
horrible mistake that was.
And Libya, of course, has been in pretty chaotic shape ever since. So I just worry sometimes that the American or even Western perspective in these things isn't shared at all in the countries in the Middle East, and so this idea that Iran is going to be brought to heel, I'm skeptical of that, and I'm concerned that, in fact, what is, I think, it was genuinely intended to increase safety in that part of the world will, in fact, increase risk. In any event, is Joy Reid done with the Democratic Party? We'll discuss after this.